Hello, hello, Salteratory. How's everyone doing? Welcome in. It is time for Mayday. It is Monday, March 17th. We have a brand new show for you this week. A lot of updates to the broadcast. I had the flu last week. I know I ended the second hour of the stream a few minutes early. That is because... Oh, we're getting double. Hold on. What is happening right now? Sorry about that. See, told you. Turning that off. I don't know why that's happening. That doesn't make me very happy. Anyway, sorry I had two of my voice going. That is not how you want to start. But there's going to be a couple additions. I had the flu last week. I ended the stream a little bit early. I had a migraine, and it turns out I was deathly ill. It's one of those things that hit me like in the next 3 hours. And now my son has a cold, and now my wife has a cold. So I think that's just what happens. That's what I heard. He's not even in daycare. Figure it out. He's not even in daycare yet. So I don't know where he got it, but it is what it is. All right, let's hop right into the show. So many fun things happening. We got the Tokyo series. We got the spring breakout games. A lot of nasty pitches. A new overlay for that. A new organization. So I'm excited to share a lot of this stuff. And I got a little creative this weekend and added a few things as well. In between installing by hand my own solar panels. I am more sore than I've been since last time I did spring training. So, but in a good way. It's one of those in a good way, but my feet are sore. You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean? When you put on cleats for the first. Anyway, we're going to get right heckin' into it. Let's go. It's Mayday, and it is time to talk about a few things. As I just mentioned, the Tokyo series has begun. That is the Chicago Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers, reigning World Series champs, headed over to Japan to open the regular season with 2 games head-to-head. But before they got into those 2 games, which start, I believe, tomorrow. Yes, it is Tuesday, Wednesday. So tomorrow and the next day, I believe they have a day off today. There were some exhibition games where the Dodgers and the Cubs took on... Let me make sure I'm pronouncing this team name. The Yomiuri Giants, and they both got shut out. But this gentleman, Pete Crow Armstrong, got to live out a dream that every little boy imagine or thinking about being in the major leagues thinks of, and that's getting their name chanted in a major league stadium. I actually have the video here for you. Let's see if we can get a little audio here.
So drives this to deep left.
That's the wrong video, of course. Played the wrong one.
Here's Pete Crow Armstrong. PCA chant here at the Tokyo Dome.
Isn't that pretty neat? In Japan, I guess, Pete Crow Armstrong is a hot commodity. A lot of fans over there. And he said it himself, quote, when asked what that was like, it's the coolest, Pete Crow Armstrong said during Monday's team workout in the Tokyo Dome. I mean, I get treated incredibly well in Chicago. That's no secret. I definitely don't want to start comparing, but that's not what I'm looking to do. But coming across the world and hearing that was arguably the most special thing that has happened to me in baseball to this point. I mean, he's a budding star. I think we're all Pete Crow Armstrong fans at some point. I myself met him when he was 19 with the Mets before he was traded over to the Cubs, and he's just he was a very confident young man, but also just really, really nice and respectful and a cool kid. I was like, oh, this kid's got a future, and it's only blossomed from there. But to go to Japan, across the world, and get chanted your name, I can't imagine how that felt, because it never happened for me. But congratulations to PCA. I just thought that was a real feel-good story. It stuff gets me going, man. From the the Trey Turner standing O to get him out of his funk a couple years ago, from the Bryson Stott, everyone singing a song when he walks out. Like, that's the type of stuff that makes professional base sports in general, but baseball, because we have so much music involved, I just love it. It just gives you a feeling that you can't really get anywhere else. Could he be a guy this year, says Osito Suavecito in chat. Could he be a guy? He could. The bat needs to come along. He's already elite defensively. The guy can run, and he's got energy. So, it's not like he's going to struggle with that stuff. So that's always a good sign. All right, moving on to the news in one moment. But first, remember, Mayday, this show has an audio companion pod. I've actually been brainstorming a lot of extra bonus content to go on this podcast. Little blurbs, little things come up in real time. I want to give you a little bit of my opinion on it before, like not having to wait till the next Monday, because I only do this show once a week. I have a 5-month-old, don't forget. But you can go check that out anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can subscribe to it. I got links in my bios and on every social media. If you are like, hey, where did you say that was? It's everywhere. Just go check it out and and make sure you follow it so you don't miss anything in the future. And in addition to that, we have Cut on the Diamond, which is my sit down, tell stories with ex-players or current players show. Most recent episode is Rich Hill. Honestly, we need to do a behind-the-scenes podcast about the episode that we've been trying to do, because the number of things that have gone wrong. His power went out twice. I didn't record the audio the first time we recorded it, so we got it. Might be a part 1. We might do a part 2, but go check that out as well. Same places. Go check it out and make sure that you're following wherever you listen to podcasts. Actually, that was right. Now, not back into, but we're going to quickly hit on some more news. A lot of things have happened. We have lots of games going every single day, so we're going to have a lot of news. And I'm going to try to develop my skill at getting quickly through these things and just hitting them. All right. First up, Shohei Ohtani in the exhibition game against that same Yomiuri. Is that correct? Someone, you correct me in chat if I am saying that incorrectly. I apologize. But on Saturday, Shohei belted a long two-run homer, as if he hits anything other than long homers, in the third inning in front of 42,000 fans in the Tokyo Dome. He's 4.5 months off shoulder surgery. It's great to see him go and take a big daddy hack like he did, going deep, and then do it in front of the home crowd. It was just electric in there, and it's indoors, so it's just like, I can't imagine how loud it is. It's awesome. But of course, Shohei, it's a home run, because of course he does. It's what's best for baseball, and I'm glad he did it. The Yomiuri Giants, in addition to the Hanshin Tigers, were playing the Cubs. So the Yomiuri Giants were not the team that shut out the two teams, because of obviously Shohei just hit a home run, so that doesn't make any sense. But the Hanshin Tigers shut out both teams, throwing 18 scoreless innings, capping it off with a 3-0 win over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Blake Snell started that one, gave a three-run home run in the fourth inning, but looked pretty good. Otherwise, right-hander Hiroto Saiki, I like that, threw 5 dominant innings for the Tigers team, and he got Shohei to start the game and coaxed a harmless pop-up for the slugger in the fourth. Obviously, they're still treating it a little bit like spring training, because it is technically a week and a half until everyone else opening day plays, and these are exhibition games. But starting tomorrow, we're going to see the opening day technically between the Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Bad news for Royce Lewis once again, the man who seems to get hurt all the time, which I don't want to throw shade, but he does. And as someone who is a huge Royce Lewis fan, I really want to see this kid stay on the field. But he came out of a spring game recently with a hamstring injury against Boston, which that doesn't narrow down. They play Boston like half the games. But this isn't just another injury on the list of injuries. He missed the 2021 season after he tore his right ACL. Then he had he slipped. He slipped on some ice. Ooh, we're getting some. That's not. I didn't know that actually. What? This got snuck in here. David, you got me, bro. And then 2023 he started on the 60 day. He recovered from his knee surgery from the prior June. He also had IL stints that year with the strained left obliques, left hamstring strain. If this is sounding familiar, stop me. But he put together his first 162 games in the MLB, which were over about 3 years. Came out to an MVP. So Royce Lewis is a big part of that team. It just seems like it's soft tissue after soft tissue injury. Might be he might just be too athletic. He might have Giancarlo Stantonitis, which is a good and bad thing, evidently. But I'm thoughts are with you, Royce. I hope you get better soon. It's just hamstrings can be an issue long term, but it also could be really quick depending on severity. And I'm choosing to be hopeful for the shorter. Speaking of injuries, the Yankees got more possible bad news by scratching the Clark Schmidt, the man, the myth, the legend, Clark Schmidt, that is, from his Monday start today. As you may know, they have lost Garrett Cole for the year to Tommy John surgery. Luis Heel, they were hoping would be like a 4 to 6 week thing. It's looking like it's going to be more about half the year out with a lat strain / tear. And now Clark Schmidt has been scratched, dealing with some shoulder soreness. Hopefully that's all it is. Said he felt it in a bullpen session. Hopefully it's just fatigue. It's very common about this time in spring training when you have 2, maybe 3 starts left. You're feeling a little fatigue. You're like, hey, we can get away with skipping one here and staying ahead of this thing. It happens. Because sometimes if you pitch with your shoulder really tired, you could potentially hurt yourself badly. So we're hoping the best for the Yankees and Clark Schmidt. But they're, as we've talked about all the time, every single week on this show, they don't have much to work with right now, and they cannot afford. If anything, they can't afford to anyone to even like pitch poorly at this point. Like, so they can't lose Clark. Clark's got to stay off the IL, and hopefully this was just a preemptive situation. But if as it stands, if Clark Schmidt has to miss any time to start the year, Marcus Stroman just became the number 3. That's crazy. Carlos Carrasco would slide into that 4th spot, and we got Warren possibly in the 4. So, not looking good over in the Bronx. But there was some bright news. We got all the bad stuff out of the way early. Actually, I think we have some more bad stuff later. But the spring breakout games, headlined by the big 3 in Boston: Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer. And what do? Of course, they all hit homers. Oh, what? It's a game about prospects? We're the 3? We're the big 3? Let's all hit homers. All in the same game. It's funny, though. Boston ended up dropping the game to Tampa. That also saw... what's his name? Also saw some good play out of Tampa. For some reason, I didn't write it down. But... the best part about this entire thing, in my opinion, was when Anthony hit his homer amongst, which I can only imagine are a bunch of probably in their late teens, early 20s dudes chanting overrated at him. And then he hits a homer 434 feet immediately. Again, that's some Shohei Ohtani vibes aura right there, dude. That's nutty. That's nutty. I love the spring breakouts. I want to hear what you guys think about it too. Let me know in the chat, in the comments, anywhere you can. Write stuff down, because I think spring breakouts is amazing. I'm having a good time catching up with all these guys and moving forward. On to the next guy. This gentleman that I'm going to call him C, Big C, because I cannot say his last name. No matter what I do, I even looked it up I looked it up on Google, and I had the voice thing tell me how to say it, and I can't remember. But he is an ambidextrous pitcher. You may have seen him via the internet last year pitching for Mississippi State. Durangelo, Big C saw his first bit of action with the Mariners during their Friday night spring breakout game in roster Cleveland Guardians prospects. He faced the number one overall pick, Travis Panzana, which he pitched to left, got a weak ground ball, and then switched over to the right side. Guy throws low up into like 94 left-handed, and then can run it up to 98 right-handed. He was a first rounder for the Mariners. Surprise, another good pitcher. But we haven't really had a true ambidextrous guy out there throwing with one of those, ambidextrous gloves that was going to be a major part of a bullpen or even drafted really high. We've never had one of those, but no one's really done it in the big league since Pat Venditti, and he didn't throw that hard, frankly. He threw in the high 80s to 90, and that was impressive enough at the time. But this guy's got a real chance to be literally two pitchers in a bullpen. Now, I just want to know how, sore he's getting in his back and stuff from flipping both sides. I can't imagine, but just fun to watch, man. I don't know. Kids these days are doing crazy things. No, I love it. I think that adding value to your team and being able to do something like this, it's one of those things I've always wanted to learn to throw left-handed just to see if I can do it. Could I just become a left-handed pitcher? Just for a men's league or something? But it'd be so hard. I get so frustrated. I'd just throw right-handed probably. Oh, I got another pronunciation written here I missed this. David, thank you. God. Producer David, let's get some little claps in the chat for Producer David figuring it out. And knowing exactly that I was going to have a problem with. It's Senja. That's how you pronounce it. Durangelo Senja. I don't know how, but it is. Wow. Incredible. Ooh, how about another prospect? A guy who has, quote, told Paul Skeens he might have to throw on day 2 once he gets to the big leagues. This is Bubba Chandler. Now, 1, nicknames. Bubba. Awesome. If you can go by Bubba, I think that is sick. I wish I would have been Bubba May. I think that would have been cool too. Unfortunately, my parents named me Trevor after a stupid frog in Harry Potter. No, I was born before that. Obviously, that's a joke. But he adds his upper 90s heat with, you guessed it, hammer breaking balls as he threw in his breakout start. He looked pretty dang good, finishing with a 98.5 mile an hour four-seamer that just caught the outer part of the zone for called third strike. He was throwing missiles, but at this point, everyone throws missiles. But Bubba Chandler, another Pirate that they have, probably going to get some big league time this year, probably going to work his way into that rotation. And if he comes into his own quickly, like kind of the other guys did, if he just follows the Jared Jones model, that's just a stupid rotation. And they got some veterans. He's had to push out Heaney, have to push out Falter to get in there. But I think when it comes down to it, when you're head to head with these guys, as soon as he's ready, he's going to get the shot, as I think he should. Also, Leo DeVries, Ethan Salas come up 5-2. They had a great day as well. And then we got Mookie Betts. Unfortunately, he's out for the 2-game Tokyo series with illness. Lost 15 pounds. Whoa! Actually, can't confirm. I got sick for my show. I don't think I lost 15 pounds. I would have loved to. But he says he's starting to feel better. Nothing worse than flying probably 13 hours and then losing 15 pounds and then flying back. That would suck. But it looks like he's okay. Looks like that's not long-term. There's no long-term effects of this. Hopefully this isn't like a mono situation, because sometimes guys get that in the middle of the season and then they're battling it all year. But it looks like it's just flu. Stuff's going around. People are getting excited. It's starting to get a little bit sunny in more places. Everyone's starting to get out of their houses and then see people for the first time 4 or 5 months. I'm speaking from experience here. I live in the great north. So That's sometimes what happens. Rafael Devers is back playing and has taken a couple steps back from the comments he made earlier in the spring about how he's a third baseman and he's not going to DH. He said I've told the Red Sox he'll do whatever they need, reportedly considering requesting a trade this offseason. So once he heard about all this conversation about going to DH, he thought about asking for a trade. Sounds like he's really wants to be the third baseman. I understand that. We've talked a little bit about it here, quite a bit. It just comes down to at some point you have to have personal responsibility and you got to look at the numbers and say, am I doing this job good enough to keep it? Just because you can hit doesn't mean you get to stay at third base. But he has softened a little bit. He was also a little slower to come back than I think he wanted to. So he's trying to keep it a little even kill and not become a distraction, what I think inevitably is the right decision. So far, no extension talks with Mason Miller. The A's have had a flurry of these things with extension talks with Brent Rooker, with Lawrence Butler, both of which they were able to get signed to long-term deals. And the next logical progression of that, in my opinion, and is a lot of people's opinion, is Mason Miller. Unfortunately, Mason Miller's he's a reliever, so you can always just find a new one. Anyway, also, if you guys are watching on YouTube over at Foul Territory, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. They're on the quest to get to 100,000 subscribers. Also, Trevor May Baseball, where the second hour of this show will be bouncing over to on my YouTube channel, is also pushing very hard for 100,000 subscribers. I think we're at like 95,000 now, so we're only 5K away. There's no reason we can't get there. I know I haven't asked you to do it enough, but I suck at it. I suck at it. All righty. Okay. Now you saw this earlier. A couple quick, fun college baseball updates. To two quick ones. Okay. First of all, this is probably gonna play the PCA thing. Oh, no.
It's a fair ball, and it's another.
Still figuring this out, guys. So we'll fix this for you. So I don't know if you can see it very well. You probably can't. Let me just cover this up. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Probably can't see it very well, but this is Minnesota taking on Kansas. In Minnesota, this is where the Vikings play. So that's why the stadium looks so big. And this game did not go well for one of the teams. That team being the Minnesota Gophers. They were defeated 29-1 and gave up 5 straight home runs, a new record in any league, not just college baseball, Major League Baseball as well, by giving up 5 straight homers. You want to see what they look like? Here's what they look like. These were not short little homers.
Diggins swings and sends this in the air to deep left center field. Back goes Easton Richter. He leaps up, and that is gone. Diggins
hit a 3-run home run to make it 9-1. 4 batters later, the score was 13-1 after Max Solis Jr., Brady Counsell, Brady Ballinger, and Jackson
Kansas Jayhawks. Counsell drives this to deep left, and they go back to back.
And it just kept going and going. 2 different pitchers pitched. Guy gave up the first 2.
1-0.
Guy comes in, gives up the next 3.
Hit to deep right.
Kansas
back
joined South Carolina,
goes,
Eastern Illinois,
twisting
and
towards the
the
pole.
only 4 teams
It's
ever
a
at
fair
5 straight
ball,
home runs.
and it's
NCAA
another home
Division I
run
level.
for the Kansas
no MLB team has
Jayhawks.
ever accomplished feat. So I lied.
Yep,
it has
the second
happened
inning.
in Division I baseball. It's never happened in the major
And
leagues.
this is
As it probably
hit well to
shouldn't,
deep left.
frankly.
That is back, and that is gone.
It shouldn't be allowed. That's just
Wow.
That's just
5 straight home runs.
So homer
for the
after homer.
Kansas
You can
Jayhawks.
see the hitters.
And Benny
getting
Casilla
more and more
scores as well.
hyped.
That's a
That is
3.
not what I wanted you to see. Oh my God. My hotkey stopped working. Okay. And in other news.
And Benny Casilla scores.
This might be the craziest celebration I've ever seen in a college baseball game. Michigan junior Mitch Voigt celebrated a second inning triple by snort the third baseline as if it were a different white substance. Watch here.
And Benny Casilla scores as well. That's a 3.
It's feeling good, I guess. I love it. You know what? I understand that it is a reference to an illicit substance being snorted into your nose, but it's all in good fun, guys. Don't do drugs, kids, though. Like, I think we can all agree with that. Don't do that. Mitch Voigt, though, I'm sure the teammates liked it, and you know what? Let the kids play. Let the kids play. Alrighty, that concludes the news. Drugs are bad, okay? Exactly. Guys, don't forget, like the show so people can find it on YouTube. We have a couple main stories for you today. Shout out to David for this idea. Something I call the stadium problem. This is going to be mansplaining, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it in just a moment. Rapsodo and Hawkeye all tell you this information. Paul Skeens has added 2 pitches to his arsenal going into 2025. No! Don't do it! Don't!
Buckle up. It's time for some mansplaining.
It's mansplaining. This is the stadium problem. Stop it. This is the stadium problem. You may be wondering what that is. Recently, the Tampa Bay Rays owner, what's his last name? Why can't I remember anyone's names? Stuart Sternberg. I wanted to say Steinberg. Sternberg announced that they weren't gonna go through with the deal they had previous to the hurricane hitting. But this seems to be a pattern right now with stadiums and getting them funded, right? So as we all know, rest in peace, Oakland Coliseum, no longer a major league stadium. Again, renovation problems, unable to find a way to either get a new stadium built somewhere else or redo that stadium or find some sort of middle ground. And I think that a lot of people are a little confused on why these things constantly are happening. Like, why is this so hard to do? Why can't we get these things done? And there's kind of a lot of moving parts. So specifically, like, let's use the Oakland Coliseum as an example. The owner of the team didn't like the situation they were in at that moment. I think that's pretty safe to say at this point. I'm going to try really hard not to go for some low blows here, because I've done that enough in the past. I just want to be as objective about this as possible. The reason this thing didn't happen is because the list of things that Mr. Fisher wanted was not doable by the city of Oakland. And now you may be thinking, well then, but why can't they just build it? They're worth billions, right? They're worth billions. Here's how stadiums are usually funded, okay? It's usually a combination of private equity and public funds, okay? Private equity is either from the billionaire or his friends. They put together an ownership group. They divvy up, like they sell off pieces of the team to get some of the money for the stadium. So then they're funding some of it. And then the taxpayers basically fill in the blanks. And the reason the taxpayers fill in blanks, or at least this is the pitch by the businessmen, is that when we build this thing, it will become an economic center for your city, right? It's often attached to like additional development for the area, like a place that recently did this and executed it well is Texas, right? The new Texas Stadium. I was just there for the All-Star game last year. They have like the Texas Live and the hotel across the street, and all of these like restaurants, like the All-Star Lounge was a cool little restaurant thing that was like attached to the stadium, but not really like in it, right? You couldn't see the game or anything. And that's very common now. Like they're trying to build. That's what they were trying to do with Howard Terminal. But the laundry list of items just kept going up. right? So this was an example of the city and the ownership negotiating in good faith. From what I've heard in Oakland, all it takes is one side to subtly keep moving the goalposts to make it so you never get there, because they actually don't want that outcome. They just want to act like they were trying hard, which from a lot of people very familiar with the situation, and some of which were close to the negotiations, felt that that's what was happening. And that's where a lot of the frustration came from. It was some people who wanted to be richer than they are, trying to get a little bit more and get a little bit more and get a little bit more, and inevitably torpedoed the deal. So now we're having the same issue in Tampa, right? As everyone knows, the hurricane came through last October. The roof, which is made of was just a tarp, frankly, just a kind of thick tarp that leaked like crazy every time it rained. And by the way, it's Florida, rains all the goddamn time, just leaking all over the place. But they couldn't get the job done. They had a development of $1.3 billion planned in St. Petersburg. Here's the stadium, if you guys were wondering what it looks like now. And reportedly had a shortfall of about $150 million. Basically, they couldn't get that last 150 with arguments with the city, with the, I don't know actually if the state's involved at all, but with the city, like they couldn't figure out how to get this thing funded. Now, anyone who hasn't been to the Tropicana Stadium, it's in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is not Tampa. Like, it's really not very close. It's like 25 minutes away. It's like saying, something like outside of Hoboken is actually in Manhattan. It's not, right? It takes forever to get there. The traffic sometimes is bad, and there's just not a lot of young people that go to baseball games that live around there. It's a retirement community, basically. So do we want to put a bunch of money into this area again? Because this isn't the type of thing that people who live here go to, or do we want to move it? But if you move it, it gets more expensive. So now that there's all these additional costs that they're also starting to argue about fixing this stadium and getting the roof done and blah, blah, blah. Now they're between a rock and a hard place, and Stu Sternberg just decided, hey, I don't, screw it. We're done. We're not going to do it. And which basically opened the door to sell the team. A lot of people are reporting that Stu is being pressured to sell the team. I think that this is an example or an indicator that he is open to selling it. He's saying, hey, I'm open to selling this. I don't want to be part of this crap anymore, right? This is so annoying. I'm tired of trying to get this thing done, and everyone's so mad at me. So here's the quote from Stu. After careful deliberation, we've concluded that we cannot move forward with a new ballpark and development project at this moment, Sternberg said in a statement. A series of events beginning in October that no one could have anticipated led to this difficult decision. So basically, it was hard forever. They were trying to do it for like 15 years, and then a hurricane hit right when they agreed to it. And they just want the organization to be in the best place to play. Now they're going to play in the High A Stadium in Steinbrenner, which is just... You're playing in a stadium named after another team's owner. That's a whole nother thing. But under their current contract, they have 3 more seasons under Trop. They have to fix the roof. That's going to cost so much money they won't be able to build a new stadium. That's what it comes down to. So if they sell the team, it's moot. I think that's at this point they want it to be. But it's been getting more common to sell teams. The Orioles were recently sold for $1.75 billion. To a person that doesn't want to spend any money. And the Kansas City Royals were sold in 2020. Miami Marlins were sold for $1.3 billion in 2018. Teams are getting sold. And it's happening a lot. I mean, I don't know if any other team, at least in modern baseball history, any other commissioners had this many teams sold or changed hands in their tenure. But basically, the stadium problem is, honestly, it makes me just do this a lot, because at the end of the day, the motives for getting it done are very rarely about baseball. And I understand that these things are so expensive that that you have to do them this way. But most of the time, it just gets, when deals don't go through, it's not because the resources aren't there. It's because the split isn't the way that the both parties want it, and usually it's the private side of things that is throwing the biggest fit. But that's our stadium problem, and that's why these things keep happening, is because there are so many owners that want more. This is the way it works. But you guys know that. I can rail against this all day. We're having a new crop of owners come in, and I'll be honest, I don't like the trend I'm seeing. Not one bit. Outside of Steve Cohen, the new ownership that has joined the league, has done the opposite of spend money to make their team super competitive, with the exception, actually, to be honest, Kansas City Royals kind of quietly have been doing the exact same thing they were doing before. So I'm going to leave them out of this. But Marlins, are they spending money? Don't think so. So that is mace-plaining. That, I hope that makes sense and you guys understand. I'm a zero-time all-star. If you guys want a mug, we're all zero-time all-stars, aren't we? If you guys want to get a mug, Mayday.shop. Mayday.shop. You like that? Like that plug? Always be plugging. Always be plugging. All right, let's get into going deep, huh? All right, let's get into going deep, huh? Why is nothing happening? Rapsodo and Hawkeye all tell you this information. Paul Skeens has added 2 pitches to his arsenal going into 2025. That's one. No! Don't do it! Don't!
Buckle up. It's time for some mace-plaining.
That's what I wanted to play. This is going deep. These dudes are underrated, where we have 5 guys. 5 players that I think are underrated for reasons you may not have considered, because we know about the underrated stars, right? The Jose Ramirez's, Christian Walker, right? These guys are actually like really, really good, and we can't squeeze their name in between Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. I get that. These are probably the tier below, guys who are like freaking doing it and not getting any attention at all. None. So let's kick this thing off. Who do we believe? We're gonna get into first. Let's pull that up, make it a little bigger for you. Let's let the chat see you. This is going deep. This is I'm going to call it the underrated team. Oh, David's already on it. Wow. I don't even think about that. This is crazy. Okay. Number 1 on my list of the underrated team. We only got 5, by the way. This isn't a full team, so I guess it doesn't really. Anyway. Bailey Ober. Bailey Ober. I just realized something. I cannot see this, so I need to be able to see this. There we go. Bailey Ober is one of the more underrated starting pitchers in the major leagues, in my opinion. I'm going to bring this even bigger. All right, so I can see it. And this is why. In the last 2 years, or last 3 years, he's been overshadowed by Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, who was there, and Joe Ryan, basically. So he's the number 3 on a team that has had pretty good starting pitchers. Not stars, but pretty good starting pitcher. And the thing about Bailey is he's 6'9", first of all, so he's a big dude, but his velo's not great. He averaged 91.7 on his fastball last year. He's got kind of the Chris Young, yes, that the president of baseball operations for the Texas Rangers, who I'm talking about, and he's got this like visible high fastball thing going. But what he does really well is his off-speed pitches. But let's talk about some stats that he actually does. Let's talk about some of the stats he has that make him one of the more underrated guys, and some stuff that I was able to find. First things first, he's got a whip of 1.03 amongst pitchers that threw 50 plus starts in the last 3 years combined. So I let people get hurt a little bit, but guys who threw a lot, Bailey Ober is 6th among all of those pitchers in whip. Now, whip is walks plus hits plus innings pitched. The 1 per inning is very good for relievers and starters, for everybody. It's very good. That means you don't have that many base runners. That means you're less likely to give up runs if there's not a ton of homers. His batting average against over those 3 years is 220, good for 18th of the same qualified pitchers, 50 starts. 18th is one spot among Chris Sale over the same period of time. He is the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner. Bailey Ober, better whip or better batting average against than Chris Sale over those 3 years, which is crazy. Though the fastball is below average, the combo of an elite changeup and a good slider combined for a plus 21 run value, according to Baseball Savant, 16 of which came from just the changeup itself. Good for the 3rd best run value of any changeup in 2024. He had the 3rd best changeup in the league behind Tyler Anderson. Yeah, you know about his. And Christopher Sanchez. Oh, yeah, you know about his. Those are 2 very good changeups, and Bailey Ober's got one that's just as good. And nobody talks about it at all. He's got a great change. It's a little seam shifter. He's got a bunch of run, 17 inches on average of arm side run. The guy's nasty, and I think he should get more flowers. Big, beautiful bouquets of flowers. He also threw 180 innings. That's a workhorse. His innings have gone up. Yes, the ERI climbed a little bit, but the whip has gone down. The hits allowed, 136 hits and 178 innings. That's elite. That's elite. And sub 700 OPS every year. Bailey Ober, give him the love that he deserves. Give him a little salute, okay? Next up, Dedniel Nunez of the New York Mets. Smaller sample size, but I don't think enough can be said about this gentleman and what he meant to the Mets on their run to the NLCS last year. Reason he's underrated, he was 27 when he made his debut. Either 27 or 28, older guy for being a rookie. One, he got lost in that shuffle of guys you've heard of. I know he had a better year than like Mayton and Stanek and those guys, but you knew them. So we knew Stanek, we knew Diaz, we knew Mayton, we knew he was just the new guy. Jose Buto had been with the Mets for a long time, was throwing really well. Reed Garrett was absolutely unhittable at the beginning of the year, striking out everybody. Like he kind of just like showed up and was throwing pretty good. But I saw a bunch of things he did that made him way better than people are giving him credit for. I think he's going to be a big part of their bullpen this year. He is making his debut, I believe, today in spring training, which gives him enough time to be ready for opening day. He might, 11 days. If he gets 4 outings in, he should be okay. They might just roll with it, or he might just go and throw a couple games with AAA first. But he only threw 35 appearances, but he struck out 48 guys. He ran a .91 whip. He inherited 13 runners and let none of them score. Now, that's a big thing for me. If you come into games with 13 guys on base all year and you give 0, thank you, sir. That's a good teammate. He's rocking a reliever plus of a 113.8, which is well above average. And I think he should play a big fireman role for this team in this coming year. See him coming in the 6th with guys on base. See him splitting some of that stuff with Ryan Stanek again. Trying to get him to AJ Minter that can then get him to Sugar Diaz. So he's going to be a big part. I was really impressed watching his stuff. He's got good command, only walked 8, gave up 3 homers and under 200 batting average against. Look at that. 536 OPS plus. OPS, just OPS against. He doesn't walk people. He strikes guys out, and he's not very easy to hit. Those are all good things. All right. Next up, Brandon Pfaadt. Now, this is different, right? This one's you got to dig a little deeper because ERA doesn't tell the whole story here. And he gets overlooked a lot of times because, one, they're top three, especially Corbin Burns. Now, Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, and Merrill Kelly, those guys are going to be the guys we talk about all the time. Okay. Everyone else behind that, Eduardo Rodriguez, he could be in the mix there too because he's really consistent. But Brandon Pfaadt, he's kind of in the back end of that rotation. Remember, he pitched in the playoffs, pitched in the World Series in 2023. He's looked good. He's got a good arsenal, 6 pitches. And I just think he's underperformed what he could be, and he's just a couple little tweaks away from really being a quality starting pitcher. But one big green flag is he's always underperforming his FIP, meaning fielder independent pitching, which we broke down in what the F was that a couple shows ago, a couple weeks ago. You can check out that full video on YouTube. It's up there if you want to know what FIP is. But basically, it tries to tell you in a vacuum if you had the basic, the basic defense, the average defense, how would you perform? And for some reason, defense seems to hurt him a little bit. That happens a lot when guys get strikeouts, but also give up homers, which he does. But he threw 181 innings. So of those same standards for the league, so of people who made 10 or more starts, obviously, he was ranked 16th. He was 16th in the league in innings last year in a rotation that eats innings. He ate them just alongside him. 180 innings for a guy like this is big. We talked a lot about how starting pitchers need to throw more innings and go deeper into games. Brandon Pfaadt is one of those guys who's doing that. So I think that is valuable. He doesn't walk guys. 5.5% walk rate puts him 11th in the league, tied in 11th with a bunch of guys with a lot of really good command. He has a 6-pitch arsenal that's pretty good. The problem is his breaking pitches aren't great. So his curveball and slider, they have negative run values every year. They're getting hit hard. He's a breaking ball away. Once he finds a good breaking ball, it's probably going to be a cutter, would be my guess. That's usually the last resort for people. He's got a splitter and a changeup, throws them both, throws sinkers and four-seam fastballs. He just needs a breaking ball that can be an out pitch. But he strikes out one per inning also. All of those things are positive things. He struck out 105 guys in 185 guys in 181 innings. Another positive sign. It's just about eliminating those big innings, and I think with a breaking ball, he can do that. So pay attention to Brandon Pfaadt. See if he adds a little wrinkle pitch, because I feel like designing breaking balls is the easiest thing to do in the major leagues these days. Number 4, Taylor Ward. Why is he underrated? Well, let me tell you. 1, he's on the Angels. The biggest reason usually is because he's on the Angels. When you think Angels, at least a couple years ago, it was Shohei Ohtani and it was Mike Trout. He's 31 years old. He's been there for a while. But he's what we call a producer. Plays left field. Just upped his defense. Got his first year last year of above average run value on his defense. According to StatCast, he was in the top 74th percentile, which top quarter of the league. That's solid. He was always kind of average, sitting at about a 0. And he improved last year. That's a positive, especially at 30 years old. That's a big deal. He was a 2.3 WAR player for a bad team. I get it, but every year he's a 2+ WAR player. That is what you want. He's a career 110 OPS plus with a 111 last year. Went 25 and 75 home runs and RBIs. That is hitting 25 pumps. I think every team will take that. That was a career high. He actually had a career high in home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases with 6. Just had to throw that in there. And he played 156 games. Yes, he hit 246. The strikeout numbers may be a little bit high, but he actually had a lot of plate appearances. So it's not that bad. It's about league average. He walked a good number of times. 60 times isn't bad. And hit 25 home runs, 26 doubles. This is just like any team would be better with that guy. So he's a well above average player. He is a good, solid hitter. He's a guy you have to worry about in that lineup, especially with no Mike Trout. So if they get Trout back, he is healthy. Taylor Ward is a guy to pay attention to, and he is constantly producing. And then lastly, on my list, Tim Herron, for a little bit of a different reason, okay? Now, he's just objectively disgusting, but he gets lost into the shuffle of a few other guys. You may have heard of Hunter Gaddis. You may have heard of Cade Smith, Emmanuel Clase. Those three guys kind of get talked about the most in that bullpen, in a bullpen that was the best in the major leagues by far last year. Tim Herron was a big reason for that. Big lefty, throws high 90s, left-handed, and it's got a great slider and a great curveball. He just got lost in that bullpen. So let's just look at his stat line. First of all, he's a 116.8 reliever plus. He stranded 33 of his 43 inherited runners, which is good. You want to go, if you're below 25%, I think you're above average. It depends on when those were. You don't want to give up like a grand slam when you have the base loaded from other guys' runs. I've done that a couple times. It feels bad. But overall, stranding 33 guys, pretty solid. He throws 4 pitches as a reliever. They all had positive run values. They were all from 2 to 7. So that means your arsenal, all of it's pretty effective. But his curve and slider combo had a 37% whiff rate combined, and he punched tickets. But the biggest thing was lefties. He just absolutely dominates lefties. Lefties hit 143 against him with a 385 OPS. So pretty good. He had 16 holds. He pitched in 75 games through 72 innings. Now that's my big red flag. And this is my big red flag for literally everyone in the Guardians bullpen. 75 appearances is too many if you want your bullpen to be good for several years in a row. If everyone throws 75 times, you're going to see domino effect of injuries. They're just going to be like shoulder fatigue, elbow fatigue. I need to do PRP on my elbow because things are you're literally wearing out your parts. You only, we have a saying in baseball, you only have so many bullets. You only have so many gas in the tank. You don't want to throw them all out. That's true. You wear down. There's moving parts. You're like an engine. And if your entire bullpen, which I think they had 5 guys for over 70 times, what's too many? That's too many. A full year should be between 65 and 70. 70 should be the maximum. And we saw them run out of gas a little bit at the end. We got Cade Smith, who usually throws 97, 98, throw 93, 94 on his last day because he's like, I don't have anything left because I pitch every day. Right? So that is one thing to pay attention with Tim Herron. But kid's young. Look at him. Look how young he looks. Very young. He's nasty. And he's going to be a huge part of this bullpen. I think he's going to swap in and out with Cade Smith. I think those two, it's going to be lefty or righty, whoever it is in the middle there to get him. Hunter Gaddis at the back is going to be the way. So it's a good time to be a Guardians fan. That's for sure. That is for sure. And look at us with 7 minutes left before we swap over to our next show, or our swap over to my YouTube channel. I can sneak this one in for you guys. Here's a special treat. We're going to do a little bit of a hot route here, and we're going to talk a little bit about another guy who is throwing harder, but you may not have noticed. He goes by the name of Christian Sanchez. Boom. Not Christian Sanchez. Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies. He has added velocity every single year, and I'm going to tell you why he has done that. Because this is darn right impressive. So let me put this into perspective for you. In 2023, he averaged 93 flat on the sinker. He's a predominant sinker, changeup guy. He's going to be a really big part of the Phillies rotation going into this year, possibly the 3. But this spring training, he's throwing really hard. So in 2023, his average fastball is 93. 2023. 2024, it was 94.5. So he added a little bit. He had talked about, some of the mechanical adjustments he had made. This year in spring training, he's averaging 96 or 95.9. I rounded up because it sounds more impressive. But he's averaging 96. And I, and so as a lot of other guys on the internet, noticed some mechanical changes, some things that I've talked about in the past, but he's putting them into play as we speak. And I want to show you a little bit and give you a little bit back, show you my examples of what to pay attention, why guys might be throwing harder when you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Casey Mize is doing some of this stuff. I saw Jack Leiter has made some of the stuff happen a little bit. Like they've added just they're really subtle, but you can catch it if you're looking. So let me show you how Christopher Sanchez has added velocity. All right, so obviously the circles are going to be where we're paying attention, all right? Right here, we see this foot turned open, and this hip is turned open. They are arguably at the exact same point in their delivery, right? But this is during the season last year. This fastball was 92 miles an hour. Now, he could have been later in the outing as well, so he could be a little tired. So keep that in mind. But this one over here is from a recent spring training start in which he threw 98. Now, this is called sitting back in your back hip. But you see how he's a little bit turned? So what he's doing is he's sitting into the hip socket. I always called it socketing. I felt like my hip was going directly into my socket. I was holding myself up completely with my foot. There was no drift anyway, and if you push me, I could stay there. This is why I added a pause to my delivery in my career, or at that point in my career, because I wanted to feel that, okay? What you're seeing here on last year is that hip is not, he's not in it anymore at this point. He's already moving. His hips are moving forward already. You can see by how his foot is opening up because he's getting ready to catch himself. So his power transfer up his body, the power has already started moving up his body, and his hand is not ready to throw the ball yet. On the other one, let's hear that. On the other one, he is sitting back, staying back a little bit farther. So he's leaking here, and he's staying back here. This allows him to do what inevitably creates velocity. This is the effect you're trying to get. The hips are just the start of the sequence in order to get a certain effect. That effect is called hip-shoulder separation. Yes, hip-shoulder separation. What that looks like is this. This hip, that shoulder. This picture is supposed to have an arrow here, and it doesn't. But you get what I mean. What you're trying to do is keep this shoulder stationary or back as long as you can while this hip goes. So you're trying to extend your hip forward and your shoulder, keep it back as long as you can. What you do when you load that hip, that back hip, and you stay there a little bit longer, and then you go, is you give your shoulder an opportunity to get in position, and then your hip can go independently. And then it goes as far as it can. Imagine there's a peg on one shoulder and one hip, okay? And there's a rubber band attached to them diagonally. What you want to do is get that rubber band extended as far as you can, get it to go, and then let it snap together. That is how you create velocity. And so we've seen a bump from Christopher Sanchez, unlike anything that I've seen outside of my own career. I did the same thing. I have a video out called How I Learned to Throw 100, and it talks a lot about all the things I did to create this effect. But when you watch him, just notice, because he's really under control. He's not violent. He's really under control. Just watch him. Just notice how much longer he stays back and then how far his hip gets away from his shoulder when he throws the ball. That is how you learn to throw harder. All right. Those of you that are here from foul territory, I want to say see ya. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And I will see you over on Trevor May Baseball channel for hour 2 after a word from our sponsor. We don't have any sponsors. I'm going to take a 2-minute break and get a drink of water. So I'll see you in just a moment.